So, Bhattavivat asked me to share my experience, and so I'll do that. I recently did that at the retreat, so this is a repeat for Heather and Max. I don't often do it because I don't know. I mean, you have to see the truth for yourself. You have to see and know it for yourself. So somebody else telling their story is not that helpful often, although maybe it can show you that it's possible, right, to do this, to change the mind. And I guess the points I want to convey in the way I share this is that the importance of determination, the importance of a clear path, and the importance of a teacher. So, just how I came to this, and I shared this at the retreat also, is when I was 17, I had an awakening experience. I was, up to that point, I didn't believe in anything. Thought spirituality and religion were a bunch of hooey. I was a typical pain in the ass teenager. And out of the blue, it's like, the blind just came off, and I started as a feeling of deja vu. Then it became not just deja vu, but the knowledge that I'm always here in this moment. And that I didn't actually exist Michael didn't really exist. And I remember I was just shaking because it was so kind of traumatic. It was like seeing yourself and your family murdered. And I saw a lot of things. And then my mind went back to normal. But that was like this turning point in my life because afterwards I was still, a teenage asshole. But I had this huge pressure to find a way out. I didn't know what it meant because I had no context for any of it, and I had this huge pressure to find a way out of this delusion. The reality of that. When you really see the truth, it's you have the certainty that okay, now I'm awake. Every other moment I was dreaming. So it's really amazing, when it happens. But again, I had no idea what it was. I was still just, got in trouble, just as susceptible to anger and greed and everything else. And but I had this huge pressure to find a way out because I knew without any doubt that I was stuck in this illusion. And so I, investigated different spiritual traditions, and started with Christianity because that's how I was raised, and understood it in a different way than I was brought up in it, and Hinduism, and then gravitated towards Buddhism, and then the Zen, and tried to meditate on my own, for years. Didn't really get anywhere. And then when I was, I guess, in my late 20s. Mid to late 20s, I started to. That's when I first practiced with a teacher, a Zen teacher, and started with a sangha in Westchester County, and then somebody told me about a Chinese master in Queens, Master Sheng Yen, who was a famous Chinese Zen master. He had a big temple in Taipei and had this outpost in Queens, which is kind of a special place, actually, I thought. And I would go down there and practice with them, once a week from Connecticut, so it's over an hour drive. But I recognized the importance of having a true teacher. And he taught different ways of meditating. And just as an aside, in the beginning, when I started practicing with him, he had this he was doing this thing of intro to Chan meditation, where it'd be like 3 Saturdays in a row. You'd come down and practice all day, and he'd teach you. And he taught these different practices. One was a moving hand meditation. It wasn't exactly the same pattern as this, but it was funny, that later when I encountered this teaching, it's not just in Thailand that they do this kind of a similar practice to this. And he taught, of course, breath meditation, and he taught, but the thing that I gravitated towards at that point was he taught the sound meditation, where he said, make your mind like a sound detector, and just notice how how sound is. Notice the sound changing from moment to moment. Notice all, just be like a microphone. It just picks up what's ever there. It doesn't, label it. It doesn't judge it. It doesn't hold on to it, because you got to catch the next sound. So for some reason I gravitated to that, and I got really kind of good at being, the interesting thing about that kind of practice is that it cultivates a very alert sort of mind, that's really attending to the present moment. It's just tending to sound in the present moment, but sound is changing every single moment. So that was my practice. And then, and I could get my mind into a very concentrated state, but still, I still suffered. It didn't really change me. And then somebody told me about this guy who was coming up from Temple University to teach at Chongyan Monastery, which is this big Chinese monastic center in upstate New York, Carmel, New York, which is only about maybe half hour, 20 minutes, half hour from where I was living at the time. And actually, it was my Tai Chi teacher told me about this guy, because he was interested, because he thought maybe he had some similarity to Tai Chi. And so I went with them, and I met Tabivat, and he was coming up, every so often on a Saturday or Sunday, I forget which day it was, and leading a practice group to show Luang Chan's method. He was a layperson at the time, working on his PhD at Temple. And so I thought it was interesting, and my Tai Chi teacher, as soon as he recognized that it had nothing to do with Tai Chi, he stopped coming. But I didn't, I didn't. But it still wasn't my main practice. I was still working mostly with going to Shenyang Center, in Queens. And then in '92. Tabivat started inviting these monastic teachers to visit from Thailand. And the first teacher brought over was Ajahn Tang, and who none of you know, I think, but and Ajahn Nipan, he wasn't an Ajahn at the time, he was a young monk who was helping to attend to Ajahn Tang and translate for him. He came over with Ajahn Tang. And as soon as I saw them, I heard them speaking, I kind of knew, okay, this is the path, because their message was that everybody can know the truth in this very life. It's not something, some teachers say, don't worry about it, it's another lifetime, and I couldn't accept that, because I knew I had to find a way out. And when they said, their message was, everybody can do this, everybody can awaken in this lifetime. And just from the way they talked and their demeanor, I had faith in them. So they were coming back. So Tabivat was bringing these monastic teachers over just for the rain retreat. So for like a 4-month period, they would stay at this Chongyan monastery and teach. And we would have retreats, week-long retreats and weekend retreats and so forth, and weekly practice. So while that first visit with Ajahn Tang and Ajahn Nipan, that first rain retreat period with them, I decided, well, this I want to try this, and I'm going to. It's much closer than Queens anyway, and it seems like such an opportunity. They're here for 4 months, and so I really kind of dove into it and did retreats and practice every day. And I remember my first retreat. I was being interviewed by Jan25th, and I, told him that what I had been doing with the Chan meditation, and I said, the sound, the sound meditation I'm doing seems kind of similar because you're just noticing the changing phenomena every moment. And he said, well, this is better. This is the movement of the body and mind is closer to home, he said. And so I said, okay, I guess I can, and I came up with this idea. I said, well, maybe I'll just make myself be like a motion detector. So instead of noticing sound, I'm going to register every motion that happens in the body and mind. And again, motion detector can't hang on to anything, can't judge anything. It just knows it. It knows in every movement that's happening in the body and mind. And I made progress quickly. So it didn't take me very long to be able to see thought, which is one of Luang Por-Tien's a unique part of Luang Por-Tien's teaching is the distinction between seeing thought and knowing that you're thinking. So everybody knows that they're thinking, but to see thought is to be sort of outside of the cave, looking back at it, and no one to be immersed in it, but to be outside. The awareness is outside of the thought and just seeing it as for what it is. So it didn't take me very long to be able to do that. And then I started to have experiences one of the first kind of shocking things that happened is I was practicing. This is I don't know how long. This is shortly after I started practicing. Maybe it was a year later or something. I don't know. But I got up from practicing, and my wife walked up to me, and my mind perceived her as simply an object, which I know sounds terrible. So you see your wife as an object, but it was it's hard to describe. It's like I knew it was my wife, but I just saw that there was just a visual object. My mind was actually just seeing a visual object. That's what's really touching my awareness, and I didn't really understand it. And the hard part about those early days with our group is we only had a teacher 4 months a year. The other 8 months a year we were on our own. And so I started having these experiences. I had one day I saw it was outside, and I saw a tree, and the tree was actually kind of happening in my own mind. And I didn't really understand that at the time. But I think these things were happening that were very kind of undeniable to me. That they're so I knew I was on. This was a path. That was actually doing something. So I persisted with it, and the Luang Por-Tien, he did his contribution was, I think, probably threefold. One is the method. This method that doesn't get you trapped in stillness and suppressing the mind. And he clearly articulated, as Talia shared earlier, the role that thought plays in creating suffering and in establishing suffering in place. Our thoughts are what's kind of lock it in a way. And also, he articulated these stages of practice that these deepening stages of awareness that one needs to consolidate within themselves, and they're in that. Actually, there's some books out there. Tavi's book, "To One That Feels," is out there. You can grab a copy; it's free, so you can take it with you. And in that book, it does articulate the stages of practice. At one point, Jan talks about his stages of practice. But so I went out of order for some reason, So 4 years after I started this practice, I was, the monks were gone. I was on my own. I was on a business trip, and I was working. I think my story may also help you and give you confidence that you don't have to be like a monk to do this. I mean, I was married, I had a daughter, I was working 60 hours a week, I was traveling on business trips all the time, 30% of the time I was traveling. And so I was on this trip in this small town in Mississippi. I had a meeting later that night. I got there, I had some time, and in this dumpy motel, basically. And I sat down on the floor, started practicing. And the state of a rising extinction happened, And so I saw what I saw when I was 17, but now it didn't overwhelm me because I had like a frame, I had a context for what was happening, and I saw that what happened when I was 17 just came out of the blue. This I could see it happened because I was watching mental phenomena coming and going in the mind, and then that broke through. And maybe it came out of order because of that other earlier experience made it easier for it to come up. I don't know, but it did. So I wrote to Ajahn Tong, I was mostly practicing with them, and I, we didn't. The monastery he was at didn't have internet at the time, I believe, so I had to actually send in a letter, with a stamp and everything, and send it to, told him what I had seen. And he wrote back saying, no, don't worry, it's an illusion. I wrote back saying, no, it's not an illusion. And then, there's nothing, and then Ajahn Da came the next season, because what Tavi Bhat had arranged for this kind of rotation of the monastic teachers to come through. So the next season, Ajahn Da was there for the rain retreat, and Ajahn Tong had asked him to talk to me, and so I told Ajahn Da what I saw and what happened and my experience, and he confirmed it, and he said, sometimes, most people start at the bottom and work their way up. Sometimes you start at the top and work your way down. And because even though I had seen that, and that state, I still got angry. It wasn't stable, that knowledge, that wisdom wasn't stable. So I still had greed and anger and everything, it was less, it had, from the very beginning of this practice, it was kind of going down, but it was still there. And so my path then was like, okay, how do I put an end to it? How to come to this place that Tavi Bhat talked about, where the rope is cut, where that greed and aversion can't come back again. And I have to say, I don't think it's a good thing to go out of order, because you can attach to that stuff. You see something really amazing, and you can just kind of you attach to the memory of that, and get stuck. And so I think it's better to go in order and have a foundation beneath you. But I couldn't control it. I didn't decide to go out of order, But anyway, I filled in some of the pieces over the years, and then at the last, not this last retreat, it was in also the year before. At the end, I asked Ajahn Da, how do I cut this damn rope, And he said that Long Por Tien said you need to see Watu Paramat, samuti akara. So Vatu Paramat means the touchable object, and samuti is supposition. Akara is the symptom in the mind. And then he picked up a bowl like this, and he struck it as a demonstration. And then, when he did that, all of a sudden it came together for me, and I could see. So when he did this striker, symbolizes the objects that we're actually encountering. The eye just sees a physical form, the ear just hears an audible sound, the body just has a sensation. They're empty, just like this is just a piece of wood. This isn't beautiful. The beauty or ugliness or whatever is happening from the reverberations of the mind. And I could see then, all of a sudden I could see that in my own mind. I could see my mind reverberating. I could see the striker hitting, I could see the mind reverberating. And then it became stable for me. And things that from that moment, things that would normally I'd be infatuated with or angry about, they just couldn't attach anymore. So, up till that point, my practice was about like seeing things, letting them go, Now it became like the things themselves couldn't attach, So I didn't even have to let it go because they couldn't attach. Like a screw that's been stripped, it just can't attach anymore. Because you see that it's just your own mind that you're attaching to, it's just your own reverberations. And it's, the lesson I'm hoping to share with you is the importance, again, of having a path and having a teacher. Without Luang Tong, or Shandai rather, giving me that teaching in that moment, I don't know, maybe I'd still be not quite there, and it's also demonstrated for me, I already had faith in Luang Chan's teaching, but it really kind of drove home in a very vivid way the importance of those stages that he articulated. Because until you kind of understand each of those stages and see them directly, not just understand them conceptually, but see them, directly, you can have a moment of awakening, but it's not going to be stable, and you're still going to get angry, you're still going to be infatuated with this or that. And it's, even though these things don't attach to the mind anymore, it's just like being normal, I still, I have a wife, I have a daughter. I have to leave a bit early after this talk. I have to go because I have a previous commitment with my family. And, it's not like you become some kind of weird person, I think my wife would probably say I'm easier to live with, not attaching to things, So it's not, I think people get, it sounds like a negative thing to some ears, maybe, the idea of no longer getting excited about this or that, but it's not. It's just, you can be happy and still, enjoy your family and enjoy your friends but be happy and at peace, So it's, for me, it's, this has been the most important sort of path, for me, well, ever since I was 17, it was kind of the most important thing in my life, is finding a way out. And I'm so grateful for, Tabivat, this confluence of causes and conditions that allowed me to meet Tabivat, allowed me to meet these monks, allowed me to engage with this practice. And yeah, so that's my story.
Thanks for sharing.
Sure, yeah. All right, everybody can do it. It just, that experience I had just gave me the determination early on. That's all it gave me, really. I mean, is that determination. I gotta do this. And so, if you have the determination and you're following a clear path, like Lumpur Tian laid out, and you have the teacher to kind of, point your awareness in the right direction. The truth is there already within, it's already who you are. So it's inevitable that if you are aware, you'll see it because it's what's there. I don't know. Any questions about?
I can just resonate with what you're saying. That it is, you're spot on with a well-articulated practice, with a teacher that can guide you. And I can relate also with the periodic moments, right? Because when we're away from our teacher and we practice, maybe we feel like we are creating bad habits in our practice versus the right habits. And the power of the teacher to mold us and shape us and work with us is really, really the core to progress in these practices.
Yeah, and we have these teachers here. Gashan Da is resident in Connecticut. He comes up here once in a while, but he's always there. And I'm always willing to talk to anybody. Anybody can set up a Zoom, and my only goal is just to help people awaken.
Well, for me today, so I always got stuck, as I mentioned before, that I would look with my mind for the thoughts, and after you explain it, and he explained that in terms of this is mind. Like I always associated mind with this. This is mind, and when you say that there's no another mind that observes, right? So I kind of I think I made a really big improvement afterwards, because it just clicked that it's just awareness. And before I was always like, you say, you buy the cat, you get the cat before you see the mouse, right? That's what I was, that's my status before. And then it just clicked today. So I feel like teaching is very, very important. So thank you.
You mentioned the previous talk that awakening is real, not a fairy tale. Can you elaborate more?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else. It's not a fairy tale. I mean, that's the reason that may have been helpful for me to share that, is just to show that it happens to real people who aren't monks living in a cave somewhere or in the middle of the jungle, you know. At the retreat, there's another practitioner there named Jim Taylor who had also reached the end and shared his experience, and I mean that's the value of potential value of sharing experiences, to see it's like this is real, you know, this isn't you know, it isn't a fairy tale, yeah, and I think many teachers today do sort of. I think they slander the Buddha when they kind of insinuate, "Oh, don't worry about that. Don't worry about awakening." You know that. I've heard some people just tell me, "No, you can't. It's not really possible to awaken." You know, but it is, and it's the most important thing you can do. It's not just like some cool thing to experience. It's becoming actually kind of seeing your true life. It's the most important thing you can do, you know, rather than it's such a tragedy to go through life not knowing, you know, what you are and pass away in suffering. It's a tragedy. So to wake up and live free of suffering for even the Buddha himself said, and Lincoln Walpo Chan echoed this, is, you know, to be awake for a day is better than being, asleep for 100 years or whatever, you know, or to be lost in dukkha, you know, for 100 years. To be awake just for one day, it's better. So.
Can you go back and reflect on moments in time where you used the word, it wasn't stable, and kind of for the beginner, can you explore that, maybe how you felt?
No, so
how
so this might not be, so maybe this is the places where maybe my talk isn't helpful, right? I had experienced moments of awakening, but because I hadn't realized the stages before that, it was, yeah, I knew there was no Michael. I knew Michael without a doubt wasn't real, but I still got angry and I still wanted things, you know. So it wasn't stable from that standpoint. That greed and aversion would still arise. So that,
and in your experience, the perseverance that the source of your perseverance was that you had an experience that, beyond the shadow of a doubt, had already convinced you. And when you had glimpses, you'd say, there it is. And then maybe you would slip away, and you would still persevere, you would get yourself back to there, and now you're here today.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're getting too conceptual. Just watch your own mind, you know, and see what it's doing, you know.
Yeah.
This, you know, when, as Ajahn Nanak was saying, you know, don't focus too much on the hand, because the hand isn't where the suffering happens. The suffering's happening in here, you know, in your mind, not in the. Well, this study says your mind's not in your head necessarily, but it's happening in the mind, not, you know. And so you want to really. This is a tool to see the mind, you know. So. Just keep watching your mind, you know, and you have these moments, and then they can be a trap because you get attached to it, you start thinking about it, and you can get stuck for a long time until you decide, until you realize, okay, I got to just drop it and just be aware. Come back to just being aware in this moment, not in, you know, 4 years ago. So if you just keep coming back to this present moment of awareness with real consistency, you'll see it. You'll see, you know, you'll see how this whole illusion is happening, how the dukkha is happening, how greed, anger, and delusion are coming together. You know.
So I'm just curious. So does anger and irritation not show up as much, or it does show up and you react differently now? What's the change?
The change is the things you see. So it's like that. One of my favorite suttas is the Discourse to Bahia, which I've shared with lots of people, with the group here in the past, where the Buddha was asked to give a quick summary of his teaching, and he was like being pestered by this guy Bahia to tell me how to put an end to suffering. And Buddha kept saying, I don't, now's not the time. I got to go for alms rounds now, later. And Bahia kept pestering, no, you got to do it now because maybe you'll die while you're on alms round, or maybe I'll die. So finally, the Buddha gave him this discourse. It's very short, and you can look it up, and Google it, Discourse to Bahia. And basically said, when the seen is just the seen, the heard is just the heard, the senses is the sensed, and the cognized is just the cognized, you will not be in, of, or by that.
Say it again?
You will not be in, of, or by that.
Okay.
So so that's like the state of Paramat. This is just an object. Whatever you're seeing is empty in itself. It's just an object. The meaning is being created by your own mind. And when you see that whole process clearly, the mind doesn't get tricked by it. So the things that would normally get you angry, you see it as just it's just supposition and fabrication on top of the supposition. Is where the anger comes from. The actual what you're actually contacting in the moment is empty. It's not beautiful, it's not bad, it's not wrong. It's just what's there in the moment as an object, and the mind creates this kind of whole world around it.
Got it.
Does that make sense? Or?
So the mind doesn't come up as much.
Well, no, but
it does come up,
but you see it as just an object. You recognize that this is just an object, and you're not tricked by. Of course, you still have names for things, but you're not deceived by it anymore. You don't buy into it anymore.
I'm just curious about him. He said he was a layperson for a long time, and what made him take up the monk life?
I feel like that once I take this form of monkhood, then I can discard all the unnecessary stuff in my life. For example, my job, my family, and other things that is to me not important. But if I stay as a lay, I still get involved with so many unnecessary things. And once I ordained a monk, then I stay on the path and working this meditation, helping other people, get involved with activities that concern about awareness. So I'm in the society of awareness, and I don't have to do unnecessary things outside of that. That is my feeling. If no more comment or questions, then we end the talk.